And after taking a round 1 loss to Matt Sperling, has ripped off 8 in a row and now finds himself in the top 8 play-in.
I talked to Vidi at the beginning of this round, like right before we came on, and I'm just like, how's the Revelation going? He's like, I'm not playing Revelations. I'm just like, what are you playing? He's like, I'm playing Red, White, Burn. I'm like, excuse me? And he's like, look, no one good plays the deck. And I'm just like, okay, I suppose that's true. When you think of Red, White, Burn players, who jumps to mind? Exactly.
I didn't say anything.
Yeah, exactly. No one.
I'm not going to comment on this.
Yeah.
You keep on going on this tangent.
Okay, so he's
about to paint yourself in some pretty tough territory right now. I'm going to let you go.
Tonight the hotel room might not be very good, but that's fine. Whatever. You don't think of any real big-name players that actually play the Red, White, Burn deck. Yes, it won last weekend in Seattle. While that was happening, Vidianto was actually playing a Grand Prix trial with that deck. And he went 5-0. He went 5-0-2 in the Swiss Double Drew, and I'm not sure if he won the tournament or not, but he was like, yeah, I was playing this deck. It was actually really awesome. No one's actually really playing it. And then it wins the tournament. He's like, that kind of sucks. But he decided, I'm gonna play it anyway. Now, his list is a little bit different than the list we saw in Seattle.
Yeah, I commented on this a little while ago that, unlike the list in Seattle, that is also has the possibility of playing a creature and kind of tempo burn game. Vidianto is a much more dedicated burn strategy. No Boros Reckoners, no copies of Storm Breath Dragon, just Ashel and Chandra's Phoenix as creatures. Main deck Skullcrack. This is a very aggressive, non-interactive build of the deck, or more non-interactive.
He said he's much lower. He doesn't have Storm Breath Dragons. He has a lot of burn spells and just a couple of creatures, Ashel and Chandra's Phoenix. That's it. So he's just, he's lighting you up.
Yes.
You're going upstairs. Now, he's against Black-White mid-range. He's against a deck that has Blood Baron of Vescopa. There's an Elves that I hang out here. Pack Rat, Desecration Demon, a couple of copies of Lifebane Zombie, and then a boatload of removal spells. Bile Blight, Devour Flesh, Ultimate Price has got Elspeth. Read the Bones, Underworld Connections, the 2-2 split, which is becoming a little bit more popular nowadays, along with 4 Heroes Downfall and 4 Thoughtseize. My Burn Maestro to my right. Who do we think is favored in this matchup?
Well, Vidi's going down to 5 cards, which is a disaster for him regardless of matchup, as he's a critical mass deck. Generally, I would want to be on the burn side of the matchup, but Vidi's starting with an enormous deficit. A lot of removal spells in the Black-White mid-range deck that are not very good against Vidi.
Well, just a couple of lands here for Miller to start. You wonder if Miller knows what he's up against. There's National that's going to come in the red zone. That's going to die to Ultimate Price. And Vidi will have to pass the turn back. And this is a land. That is a Read the Bones. Ha-ha! That's a good thing, I think, for Vidi.
It's actually a bad thing.
Okay.
As Miller just making his land drops and playing his Desecration Demon and Blood Baron type of cards when Vidi's on 5 is really rough.
War Leader Helix to draw here for Wijaya. Just going to have to pass the turn back, stuck on lands. Miller going to draw his card. He does draw a copy of Desecration Demon. It's like 2 to cast the 6/6, and this is probably problem number 1 here for Wijaya.
Yeah, although, him having to play a Gala Shrine here is significant for Vidi.
Now, here's the thing, and this is really interesting to me because I'm not sure if Vijaya's going to win this game or not, but I think it gets really interesting about what cards he decides to cast in the game because we don't know if William Miller is sitting next to Vidi, if he knows Vidi or anything like that. So what spells Vidi decides to cast, he can maybe mask the fact that he's a burn-heavy deck a little bit here.
So are you asking about Lightning Strike versus Skullcrack on that last
Yeah,
turn?
yeah, like he could have cast Skullcrack, but he chose not to.
Well, I think it's sort of, Vidi at this point is committed to basically sending every burn spell he draws at Williams' face. That's the only way he has a hope of winning this game.
Mm-hmm.
And Skullcrack has utility against a potential Grey Merchant or also fizzling the lifelink of 1 Blood Baron attack.
Sure.
So the Skullcrack has more value in his hand somewhere down the line than the Lightning Strike does, which even if Miller were to cast a creature that Vidi could Lightning Strike, which is unlikely, Vidi can't even afford to kill it. He needs to send everything at Williams' head.
Miller does scry. It looks like he may cast Read the Bones. He's got to Read the Bones. Yeah, he's got to Read the Bones. He's going to go down to 11. He has Thoughtseize. He's going to put those 2 cards at the bottom. So 2 cards coming. 1, 2, Bile Blight and Blood Baron. If he gets a Thoughtseize, he goes down to 9. We could see something interesting develop here, Patrick.
Yeah, the first Read of the Bones, I'm a big fan of. The second one, with a Thoughtseize in hand, now we're starting to get into really dangerous territory.
And he's a little gun-shy on casting Thoughtseize now.
Yeah, he can't afford to cast it. And spending his entire turn just casting Read the Bones is perhaps the opening that Vidi needs to catch up in this game.
So there's a Boros Guildgate. Passes the turn back, does Wijaya. You can believe he's going to fire off a burn spell here at some point. Now, Miller does have a Blood Baron, but you saw that he did not attack with Desecration Demon. So here is Blood Baron. That's a tap land, and no attack yet again with Desecration Demon. Demon playing defense. Wijaya just going to untap. We know he has Skullcrack in his hand, but he probably has to wait now because of the Blood Baron.
Absolutely. But he's in a spot now where if he draws Boros Charm, he has a real shot of winning this game with the damage that he has in hand, and Skullcrack to fizzle one of these Blood Baron attacks.
The draw is Desecration Demon here for Miller. Might be time to come to the old red zone here.
Certainly, Blood Baron is a safe attack.
Yeah.
There's almost no way the Blood Baron doesn't attack.
This is really interesting here because now Chandra Phoenix can get in front of, it can maybe get in front of something. I think it can get in front of the Blood Baron, right? So you get in front of here before damage your Skullcrack?
Yep. And then he can actually use the Searing Blood in his hand to finish it off and get his Chandra's Phoenix back.
Yeah.
So this is good. This is a pretty incredible potential comeback that VD is setting up here.
So Skullcrack before damage is going to put Miller down to 8. Damage resolves. There goes the Phoenix. Desecration Demon is going to put him down to 12. Here's a backup Desecration Demon. Now we go upstairs. Well, we take care of the Searing Blood's going to go upstairs. But yeah, you take care of this, and that'll deal 3. So now Miller's going to go down to. He should go down to 5 now, correct?
Well, I think that he's contemplating a response here.
Ooh.
He wanted to. It looked like he wanted to Bile-Blight his own Blood Baron. Of course, you can't do that because of protection from black.
Yeah.
But, does he have?
Yeah, he wants to, but he can't. Yeah, because of pro black. Yeah, so that's going to die. And so now, yeah, Miller's going to go down to 5. And because Wijaya has 2 copies of War Leader's Helix in his hand.
Yeah, he can survive the next attack and then potentially win the next turn.
Chandra Phoenix the draw. He has no reason to cast the Phoenixes, which I think he might. Yeah, and he's just going to pass the turn back, knowing that Helix is basically a fog. And wow, oh wow, oh wow. Yep, there's a War Leader. She looks upstairs, deal 4, but more importantly, gain 4. He goes up to 16, take 12, go down to 4. Miller's down to 1. Can't cast Thoughtseize.
Can't even cast Thoughtseize if he wanted to.
Pack Rat's a good magic card. Pack Rat's not good enough right now. This is an insane win.
Insane.
Draw, Temple. As long as he casts War Leader, doesn't cast Chandra's Phoenix, he has won the game.
Yeah, at this point, the thing that VD is thinking about is, do I cast it now, or do I wait for William to do something? Because there's the risk of Devour Flesh on William targeting himself. I think VD will probably pass and wait for William to make a Pack Rat and then finish the game.
Okay.
If he passes and William just untaps, VD will cast inside of William's upkeep.
Yeah, it's no slow roll there.
Oh.
That's a little risky.
Whoa,
yeah.
whoa, 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 whoa.
Yeah, I think he wants to cast it in his upkeep. Yeah, no, it's got War Leader Helix. He's trying to decide when to cast it. He's going upstairs. Is it good? Is it good? It's good. Okay. All right. Vidianto Wijaya gonna win game number 1 here. It's Red White Burn on a mulligan to 5.
That was a crazy game.
Wow.
Absolutely awesome.
Now, I believe that this matchup is probably good for Wijaya.
Yeah, no, 7 cards versus 7 cards, I definitely want to be in VD's seat, for sure.
Okay.
With VD on 5 cards, I thought this game is almost a hopeless cause unless VD draws a bunch of Boros Charms or something along those lines. But he navigated that game very skillfully. William maybe could have been, the Read the Bones and some of those turns that he spent there, those turns off, playing the Godless Shrine untapped to play his Desecration Demon. Maybe he can wait a turn there.
Yeah.
There's some little things that William can do to sort of preserve his life total, but VD played that game exceptionally well.
Perhaps one too many bones were read. As we'll take a look at the sideboards here. William Miller. We'll start with him. I have that in front of me, excuse me. So we'll take a look at a Whip of Erebos, 2 copies of Lifebane Zombie, 2 Doomblade, 2 Revoke Existence, 2 Sin Collectors, 4 Duress, an Erebos, God of the Dead, and an Obsidian Ghost Council. There are some nice options here.
Give me all those discard spells and give me that Obsidian. Those are really good tools.
Give me that Whip, too.
Oh, yeah.
You kidding me? Lifebane Zombie could be okay in this matchup because it's unblockable, 3 power for 3 mana. It's not that exciting, but it could be acceptable given that a lot of Williams' cards in this matchup are not great. You don't really love Read the Bones. You don't love Underworld Connections. Thoughtseize is like whatever. Hero's Downfall, you can move out. Ultimate Price, Bile-Blight, you can potentially move out as well. So there are plenty of cards to board, and I think there are plenty of cards to board out too.
Yeah, I'm of the opinion that if you're playing a Precinct Captain deck or a Rakdos Cackler deck, of course you can't side out all of your little creatures because that's all your deck is. But when you are a deck like Black-White Midrange, or mono-black Devotion decks in that space, I think leaving in Searing Blood targets that aren't very good is a disaster. Those need to be among the first things that get out of the deck, even at the expense of keeping in Thoughtseize or Read the Bones or something like that. There's almost no chance that Lifebane Zombie is productive in a game where VD has a real hand, and the fact that it has a big Searing Blood bullseye on it means it has to go. I know a lot of people, I even feel like Pack Rat's potentially a card that needs to be boarded out in these matchups sometimes if you have enough productive cards to keep in your deck.
On the other side, Wijaya, who is up a game, oddly enough. What's he got?
2 Chain of the Rocks, 4 Satyr Fire Dancer, 4 Fire Drinker Satyrs, 2 Blind Obediences, and 3 Viashino First Blades. I think, if anything, he's going to be bringing in the Fire Drinker Satyrs and maybe additional copies of Chain of the Rocks.
Okay.
We're not going to look at any really large overhaul here. I think the First Blade is more for Supreme Verdict matchups and less for matchups here. William has a plethora of very good blockers and instant speed removal. So First Blade's not very good. Blind Obedience, not really that well suited to the task. Fire Dancer, not really appropriate. So I think we'll see the Satyr and potentially additional Chain of the Rocks if VD wants more answers to Desecration Demon, which is one of the harder threats for him to answer.
First Blade's a very interesting card to me in this matchup because it kind of plays the role of a Char or a Flames of the Fire or Flames of the Blood Hand or whatever. 3 mana, 4 damage. That's the role that it's basically playing. And I think it is a role that it can fulfill on the play but not on the draw.
Yeah.
So I could see him boarding those in on the play against this matchup where I expect Miller to sideboard out a decent amount of his removal. Again, because, and he doesn't know Wijaya's exact deck list. If he thinks that Wijaya is playing Neil Hartman's deck list, then he may leave in more removal because Hartman had Boros Reckoner and Stormbreath Dragon. But if he knows Wijaya's deck list, which is 8 creatures, Ash Zealot, Enchantress Phoenix, and Burn, maybe he boards out some of those removal spells, and especially when he's on the play, speaking of Wijaya, he can come across, play First Blade on turn 3, get in for 4 points of damage, because there's a chance that Wijaya has boarded out, or there's a chance, that Miller has boarded out a lot of his 2 mana removal spells.
Yeah, no, there is some upside there, but I think that Williams' deck is equipped enough with blockers that the dream case scenario is only turn 3 uncontested board, and William doesn't have a Bile Blight or an Edict or a Hero's Downfall or whatever. And William has so many bad cards in the matchup that it's really hard for, if I'm in BDC, even if William in ideal circumstances would remove some of his creature removal, I know he has cards that are a higher priority to get out of the deck, like Lifebane Zombie, potentially Thoughtseize, maybe even some of his slower cards like Elspeth are just really poorly suited to the task. So there's no way for William to get away from his removal spells entirely, in part because he just doesn't have enough reasonable cards to keep in his deck.
Yeah. Well, we'll see how he's going to sideboard here. Game 1, I agree with you, is pretty bad. Even though Wijaya did mulligan to 5, Miller unable to win that one. Maybe, again, played a little bit too defensively. Not entirely sure. Hanging back with Desecration Demons, giving Wijaya a few more draw steps to get where he needed to go. It's a game that you'd have to probably replay and dissect turn by turn to see what ends up happening after you go through it. Not really too sure, but Wijaya able to steal that one.
Yeah, I think the biggest problem was, William took a lot of incremental damage doing things that were not particularly productive. He took 2 damage to play a Desecration Demon that ended up not really attacking or blocking for the majority of the game, or causing VD to sacrifice creatures or what have you. And there was the second copy of Read the Bones that took up his entire turn and was 2 more points of damage. So those extra points of damage that didn't lead to very much productive, I think is what allowed VD to steal that game, even mulliganing to 5.
So both players will be underway here momentarily. If you guys are just joining us, or if you've come in and out over the course of the day, we do appreciate you. Round 10 of 10 here in Los Angeles at SCG Live, hashtag SCGLA for your tweets. Patrick Sullivan, Cedric Phillips. We know that there are going to be some revelation decks in top 8. We believe that Ricky Sitter was able to draw in, but our attention right now is on Vidianto Wijaya, Grand Prix Denver champion, multiple-time Open Series champion and top 8 competitor. Can he win this match and make another top 8?
Yeah, and what's really compelling to me about VD's list is no Chandras in the 75. Even the really burn-oriented strategies usually find room for a couple copies of Chandra, but none to be found in VD's deck. And it makes sense. He doesn't really want to fight over creatures. He's just a burn deck. And Chandra is, it really requires you to keep the board clean to maximize its power.
Temple of Silence to get things started here. So Wijaya does pick up a Skull Crack. Looks like we've got a 1-drop here. Maybe not. There's a Sacred Foundry untapped, yeah, so we do have a Fire Drinker Satyr and pass the turn back.
Unlikely that William can't kill this, but he's going to put VD to the test.
It's going to deal at least 2, as here's a Duress. The hand here for Wijaya, you see he's got a Boros Guildgate. He has a Boros Charm, a Skull Crack, 2 of them in fact, along with a War Leader's Helix and a Searing Blood.
A lot of power in this hand.
Yeah. And, he was considering playing Boros Guildgate on 1 and then playing Fire Drinker Satyr plus Sacred Foundry tapped on 2. But I think it's important for him to use that Fire Drinker Satyr basically as a Char would suspend. Deal 2 on this turn, deal 2 on the next turn, and then it got its job done.
Yeah, almost all the cards in VD's hand, he's going to be able to get the same amount of damage in at any point in the game. Except for the Satyr. The Satyr has a very short shelf life because William can eventually invalidate it with blockers. So it's really important to get in while the getting's good.
So you're the master. Do you pump the Satyr or do you leave mana up?
I'm pumping.
Okay. You want to get the most out of this that you can?
With 2 skull cracks in your hand, you have a lot of insurance against William's life gain. You have a lot of spells in your hand, so you're not particularly worried about duress ruining everything. And that extra point of damage means a lot.
This is a Life Bane zombie. Not too surprised to see this come in, and that's part of the reason that he took Searing Blood, I believe, as no new card was drawn, just played a Mountain, so very quickly draws his card, does Wijaya.
And yeah, the duress having to take Searing Blood in lieu of something like Boros Charm or War Leader's Helix to clear the path for this Life Bane zombie is it's an indictment on why I don't like these kind of cards in the matchup. Yeah. The opportunity cost is just too high and the upside is too low.
So you take a look here, he's considering as Wijaya what he wants to do with this Temple of Triumph. Do I want to leave it on top? Do I want to leave it on the bottom?
And what's really compelling here is VD doesn't even have to trade. He can take Lums from Life Bane Zombie and just leave it in play. So if he does draw Searing Blood, he just gets to deal 3 points of damage.
Yeah, I was going to ask, would you attack in the situation and propose a trade over to Miller? Because part of what you have to weigh into the equation is that you can just leave your Fire Drinker Crusader there, and then it like fogs a Desecration Demon for a turn.
Yeah, I would rather. I'm not a huge fan of this trade from VD, but I do understand just the instinct to attack. But I think VD could have very easily just sat on his heels there, left William with a Life Bane zombie. If William wants a damage race, go right ahead.
Sure.
And it gives a lot more upside to VD drawing a Searing Blood down the road.
Boros Charm going upstairs. There's a Skull Crack. There's a Boros Guildgate past the turn back. So Miller's at 13. Miller going to draw a card. Leaves another copy of Life Bane Zombie. This is a Pack Rat, so now things are going to heat up here. There's a Skull Crack.
I think Pack Rat might be a little too slow for this game.
Which is crazy to say. There's Chain to the Rocks. That one doesn't really play a huge role. That one seems like it's more reserved for Desecration Demon.
Yeah, I wouldn't. And you see VD is not even going to bother to use one of his Chain to the Rocks here on that Pack Rat. He'd rather spend his turn just helixing William. You can see VD's deck, not a lot and very hard to interact with. You have counter spells, you have discard spells, but your creature removal effects are not going to be good against him. In contrast to the winning list last week in Seattle, where random Doomblades and Ultimate Prices do quite a bit of work.
Yeah, that's why I like this build of it. He's a little bit smaller, but he's just really just going upstairs. So you're going to discard a bunch of cards. This Pack Rats are going to come across for 4, so it's going to be an 8-point attack, and I think VD actually has it wrapped up.
Yep.
Yeah, because you see he's got 4, 5, 6. He's got exactly 10 points of burn, and he's going to drop it on the table right now of Skullcrack, War Leader's Helix. I can cast this basically in any order and get the job done. And yes, I'm at 6, but 6 is not 0. And if you're into burn spells, which I'm not, but I know you are, you got a pretty happy camper here. And here's War Leader's Helix, double Skullcrack, and that is going to do it.
And you know what is noteworthy about that game? William, at that moment, is at exactly 0, and VD used all the spells in his hand. If VD casts Skullcrack or Boros Charm on that second turn instead of pumping the Fire Drinker Crusader, the game could be totally different. VD might be facing down a lethal attack next turn or having a top deck. But that 1 point of damage there, when VD had a window to do it for free, essentially, that left William here at exactly 0.
Vidianto Wijaya, Grand Prix Denver champion, multiple-time Open Series, top 8 competitor. He's also won 1 or 2 of these things. He's got another shot at it today. Red, white, burn into the top 8, potentially the #1 seed.